It's Allison once more with my journal I keep on YouTube. It's early in the morning, June 17, 2024, and my topic for today is the top 3 reasons why Scientologists stay with the church. I am also going to discuss what I've found to be the best way to leave the church once one makes up their mind to do so. Before I start, if you are a card-carrying member of the Church of Scientology and you are happy with them and have no intention of leaving, this video and my channel are not for you. Similarly, if you know someone who is a Scientologist, don't send them this video or let them even know you watched it or anything else on my channel. While you and I can practice a policy of religious and philosophical tolerance, your Scientologist friend or family member does not, as they will look upon you and treat you differently if you are engaged with anything even remotely critical of Scientology, or you practice any sort of spiritual or self-help program the Church of Scientology doesn't approve of. Now, if you are just curious as to why people stay in the church despite all the terrible press and how expensive it is, and also its many contradictions, or you are a Scientologist who has either made up their mind to leave the church or who is on the fence about it, this presentation is for you. Now that we have that out of the way, let's get started. I have found that hands down the number one reason Scientologists stay church members is their belief that Scientology is their only hope for spiritual salvation. And I do understand this belief, because I used to hold it too. L. Ron Hubbard and the church make a very convincing argument. People sign up for a course or some auditing and it makes them feel good, more confident, and more able to handle this mess we call life, and that's a rare feeling for many of us. Also, L. Ron Hubbard states in his policy titled Keeping Scientology Working that you must practice Scientology, only Scientology, and if you try to improve upon it or alter it you are going to get disastrous results. And he goes on to give some examples of disastrous results by people altering the technology. The next highest ranking reason for a Scientologist staying in the church is that they believe Scientology can free all mankind, but they also realize there is something wrong with how the church is being run nowadays, and they feel it's their mission to try and fix it not just for their own sakes, but for the church's sake and mankind's as well. They see how policy is not being correctly applied. They see how the technology is being gradually altered, like the example of the Survival Rundown course pack I gave in a previous entry, that's missing a drill in it that's vital to the proper application of Scientology, as well as other alterations. They want to save the subject of Scientology. They want to save the church. Their intentions for staying are noble ones. Those people are determined to do everything they can to correct all of the church's flaws, and know they have a better chance of doing it from the inside than as an ex-member. Leah's story in the book Troublemaker, which I recently reviewed, covered many of her attempts to fix the church that ultimately failed. But this attitude is not limited to people like her. I personally know others who are still trying to do this. The third highest reason Scientologists won't leave the church is that during the course of their activities, they've made new friends, new business associates, and they also have family members who are Scientologists. If they did a public withdrawal from the church, they would lose those people. This, in my opinion, is the most heartbreaking reason of the 3. Make no mistake. It's not like leaving the YMCA or canceling your gym membership. Leaving the Church of Scientology for many means making a major lifestyle change. Now, for the truth. Scientology is not mankind's only hope for salvation. And as a side note, saying such is a slap in the face to Christianity, Buddhism, self-help programs, and anyone else who has a belief about God, the Spirit, or the mind. As the church is so intent on reminding the world, it's not a belief system, but a technology. Thing is about a technology is that unlike a belief or an ultimate truth, technologies can be improved upon. Hubbard improved upon his own technology throughout the course of his life. Why couldn't someone else? Are we to believe that he's the only one fully capable of understanding the mind and spirit? Are we to believe he's the only one capable of understanding Scientology so well that one could actually, from this expertise, then research and develop something better? Such an idea that Scientology could not possibly be improved upon does not come from any sort of objective reasoning or critical thinking. It comes from indoctrination. Hubbard states in his policy, once again, how students would do dangerous things after class with an e-meter and do damage to their cases. I believe this happened, by the way, and he had to put a stop to it somehow. But just because some crazy students played around with an e-meter and loused up their minds doesn't automatically mean that someone who knew what they were doing couldn't come up with something comparable to or better than Scientology. It's only common sense that any technology can be improved upon, otherwise we would still be driving Model T Fords, getting across the sea in sailboats, or flying in biplanes. And that's the problem with having a religion that's actually more of a technology regarding the spirit than a religion as we normally think of it. It just perpetuates outdated technology forward into the future. I found TROM to be a valid subject that goes beyond the teachings of L. Ron Hubbard. And I'm not some average Scientologist who got disaffected and left because of misunderstood words or evil acts. Those are the reasons that the church will tell you that Scientologists leave, and it is true for some, but usually I've found it's not just that. It's also because they are sick of going into debt and suffering abusive policies and practices. No. I am an auditor and a course supervisor with a high IQ who thoroughly studied Scientology and TROM, and tried TROM out for myself and found out Dennis Stevens, the one who researched and developed TROM, to be correct in all of his findings. TROM has benefited me immensely and I know it's benefited others, so to hell with this belief that Scientology is mankind's only hope. As far as I am concerned, Scientology is not even in the top 10. Now, you can still leave the church and keep your Scientology friends, business associates, and family members. And that leads me to the final part of my journal entry about the best way to leave the church. Now I have no advice particularly for Sea Org members. That's a tough one, and the following won't apply, but it doesn't matter because the chance of a Sea Org member having a few minutes to listen to my presentation without someone finding out are pretty slim. And most Sea Org members would not be interested in this presentation anyway. If you are a regular staff member, it's best to finish up your contract before implementing the following advice, unless your financial situation is so desperate you have no other choice but to leave. So this leaves us with regular, rank-and-file public who are either ex-staff members or never joined staff in the first place. The best way to leave is never to say you are leaving, and just stop taking services or attending events. Now, your first reaction to my advice here, if you are a card-carrying church member, is going to be that the church won't leave you alone if you do this. And you're right. They won't. But if you publicly declare that you want to leave Scientology and tell the church off, they aren't going to leave you alone either, and the kind of attention you get from the church when they still think you are a member is much easier to handle than the kind you get when you dramatically disconnect from them. Make sure you have plenty of books and lectures by L. Ron Hubbard. Display such prominently somewhere in your home. If you are worried about the money you'll spend, just buy them on Amazon or eBay. That way, if the church or your Scientologist friends and family visit, they won't suspect that you aren't really with them anymore. When the church calls you and tries to sell you a service, just tell them you aren't really interested in doing services right now, and you have a ton of books and lectures you want to study on your own. It's actually a good idea to keep one of those books with some passages highlighted in it next to your phone, so you can weave into the conversation. Yes, right now I am reading Dianetics 55 and I love what Hubbard has to say here, then read the passage to the person calling. If you are invited to an event, tell them you prefer to watch the Scientology network at home, and just aren't into crowds of people. Do not tell them you are upset with the church. If there was an upset, tell them you are over it. If they try to hard sell you on a course or auditing, tell them you really are more interested in reading as many books and listening to as many lectures as you can, and when you are finished with your study, you'll decide on what you want to do next. But you are going to get a pushy registrar eventually. Don't argue with them about how you don't feel you need the service. Focus on how terribly interested you are in studying the materials on your own and take more of an attitude of indifference about coming in and doing a service. Scientology registrars are experts at handling objections and resistance, but they seldom know what to do with indifference. If all else fails, and the registrar persists in trying to sell you a service, you will have to say to them, "I am sorry. I've made my decision that doing a service right now is not what's best for me. I don't expect you to understand my decision, but I do insist you respect it. And if you can't respect my decisions, I can't have you on my lines." I have stopped many registrars in their tracks by saying exactly that. And for the uninitiated, telling someone you can't have them on your lines is short for "I can't have you on my communication lines," or in plainer words, it's saying I am just not going to talk to you. That's another thing Scientology registrars aren't used to hearing, and don't really have a handling for. Say and do these things with impeccable manners, yet with a firmness of intent, and you can do what I call passively leaving the church, and you can keep your Scientologist friends, family, and business contacts this way, and spare yourself a lot of unnecessary drama. That's all for now. I'm Allison Tandri. We are DIY Salvation. Don't just use your mind. Resolve it.